Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Ijema Fab. So today I'll be showing you how to draft a princess bustier blouse. So I have my pattern paper here and my vertical measurement imputed while we're going through it. So this line is going to serve as the starting line or the shoulder line. And from here to here I have 10 inches, which is going to be the bust point. So I'm going to mark bust point here, and over here this line is going to serve as the under bust. So I have from here, from the shoulder to this line is 13.5 inches, and from the shoulder to this line is 15.5 inches. So this is going to be the waist, and from the shoulder to this line is going to serve as the blouse length or the hip. So this is 25 inches plus my hemming allowance inclusive. So this is the hip. So to achieve this, you need to have a basic knowledge of how to draft a basic bodice. So that's what I'm going to be doing here now. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to impute the shoulder measurement. So the shoulder measurement I'm working with is 14 inches divided by 2. That will give me 7 inches. So I'll be adding ½ inch to the 7 inches for seam allowance. So I'll place my tape this way and mark 7.5 inches. The neck width I want to work with is 4 inches. I'll mark 4 inches, and the neck depth I want to work with also will be 4 inches. So I'm just going to use my cuff to connect the neckline. So on the shoulder mark here, I'll be stepping down by 1 inch. So this is for the shoulder slant, because our shoulders are not straight. So we need to slant the shoulder. So I'm going to connect this to this neck width. So the next thing now is to create the armhole. So from this slant here, I'll be imputing the chest line, which is 8 inches. So I'm going to mark 8 inches here, and I'll make sure I have 7.5 inches here. Then with my ruler, I'm going to connect from here to the 7.5 inches and extend it this way. So the next thing I'm going to do to make this easy is to take the horizontal measurement. So on this chest line, so let me mark chest line here. I'm going to impute 1/4 of the bust circumference. So the bust circumference I'm working with is 41 inches, and 1/4 of the bust circumference will be 10.25. So I'm going to place my tape this way and mark 10.25 here. So for the under bust, 1/4 of the under bust circumference will give me 8.5. So I'll place my 8.5 this way and mark. 1/4 of the waist circumference is 9 inches. So I'll place my tape this way and mark 9 inches. So for the hip, 1/4 of the hip circumference I'm working with is 10 inches. So I'll mark 10 inches here. And the next thing I will do is to connect this marking. So you can see it's already taking form. So the next thing we're going to do now is to create the armhole curve. So I'll be placing my tape this way and mark ½ of this length, which is 4 inches. And on this 4 inches, I'm going to come in by ½ of an inch. So you do this for the front piece of your blouse. So I'm going to connect from here to this ½ inch and to this point here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to mark the bust span measurement divided by 2, otherwise known as the nipple to nipple measurement divided by 2. So the bust span measurement I'm working with is 7 inches divided by 2 give me 3.5 inches plus ½ inch seam allowance. So I'm going to mark 4 inches here all the way to the bust point and 4 inches here. So I'm going to connect with a straight line. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to take the dart. So if you want to take your dart, you could decide to take your dart on one side, or you could decide to distribute or divide the dart on both sides. So I'll be taking my dart on both sides, and I'll be connecting it to about 2 inches before the hem. So I'm going to mark 2 inches this way upwards. So this is where I'm going to stop, and for the underbust I'm going to mark 1 inch this way and 1 inch this way for my dart. I'll be doing the same thing here on the waist, 1 inch this way, 1 inch here, and I'll connect with a straight line. Then I'll also connect here with a straight line, and I'll be connecting from here to this point and from here to this point. So after this, the next thing now is to use our curve to create the bustier. So I'll be connecting from this bust point to here with my curve this way. But before I do that, on this bust point I'm going to step down by ½ inch. So I step down by ½ inch to avoid pointiness or any funny look. So I'm going to connect this way from this point here to here with my curve. And for this side I'll be doing the same thing. I'll connect with my curve this way. So the next thing is to create the armhole princess dart. So I'm going to measure what I have here on the armhole, and I have 9 1/4, and I'll divide that into 2, and that's what I'm going to mark here. So I'm going to place my tape this way, and this is half of the armhole. So the next thing I'm going to do is to connect from this marking now, from here to the bust point. So just like I did for this part, I stepped down the bust point by ½ inch. So for here I'll be stepping upwards with ½ inch also. So I'm going to step upwards with ½ inch, and I'll be connecting from here to this marking here. So you can use your curve or your free hand to connect. So I just want to do this first before I properly connect. So now I'm going to trace this out properly. So I'll be taking the armhole dart of 1 inch. So the armhole dart is going to take care of excesses here or any funny looking around here. So I'm going to place my tape this way and mark ½ inch here, because I want to distribute the dart, and mark ½ inch here, which is 1 inch. You could decide to take it from one side. You could decide to take the 1 inch here. Some people go ahead to use from 1½ to 2 inches dart. So you can do whatever suits you, but I'll be taking 1 inch. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to connect from here to this point and connect this to create my dart. So like I said before, you could go ahead to use your curve or your free hand. So I think I'm more comfortable using free hand. So I'll just connect. So I'm going to go ahead now to trace this out and also trace this out. So we're almost done, but the next thing you need to know is that by the time you cut out this dart, you'll be having a shortage on this panel when you sew this panel to this panel. So now I'm going to replace this dart, which I'm going to cut off or which I'm going to be taking away. I'll have to replace it on this panel. So how do I do that? You just calculate the dart which you took. So if you took 1½ inches or you took 2 inches, you're just going to add it back to this. Since my dart is 1 inch, I'm just going to extend here by 1 inch. So this panel, I'm extending it by 1 inch. So most times I like to add ½ inch extra to my dart allowance. So since my dart allowance is 1 inch, I'm going to extend by 1.5 inches. So the reason why I do this is so that I'll be on the safe side. So it's better to have an excess than to have a shortage. So after sewing, if I have an excess, I'll simply cut it out. So I'm going to extend here by 1.5 inches this way. So I'll now connect here to this point to create the new armhole. So we're done drafting our blouse. The next thing to do now is to replace the allowances and also add our seam allowances. So on this chest line, I'll have to replace this dart, which I'm going to take off from here on the chest line to avoid shortage. So I took 1 inch, and if you're taking more than 1 inch, you're going to have to replace whatever dart you take from here on the chest line. So I'm going to add this 1 inch here plus 2 inches seam allowance. So that will give me 3 inches. On the underbust, my dart allowance is 2 inches. So I'm going to replace the 2 inches plus my 2 inches seam allowance. So that will be 4 inches here. The waist, I'll be doing the same thing. I have a 2 inches dart allowance here, which I need to replace, plus 2 inches seam allowance. So I'm going to add 4 inches here. So on the hip, I'm just going to add 2 inches or 2.5 inches seam allowance. So I'll be adding 2 inches seam allowance here. So I'm going to connect the markings now. So now we are done with our blouse. So you could decide to leave it straight this way, or you could decide to give it a curvy shape here. So I'll be coming upwards here by 2 inches, and on the hem here I'll come in by 3 inches, and with my curve I'm going to connect this way. And before cutting out, the next thing I'm going to do is to add 1/2 inch seam allowance to the shoulder. So the next thing now is to cut the dart out. So this is how our pattern looks like after cutting out. So this is going to be for the center front. This and this are the 2 pieces for the side. So when you need to transfer this on your fabric, please remember to notch the waist, the underbust and the bust. So this will help you when you're sewing, when you're trying to fix the panels together. So we've come to the end of this tutorial. Thank you guys for watching. I hope this was helpful to someone out there. Please like, share and subscribe.